Hey everybody, welcome back. Forks, North Dakota, and we are so honored to have us with us today two guests. We're going to start off with Tom Swoyer from Grand Sky, okay, and we're kicking off an incredible month dedicated to industry enablers. And when you think of industry enablers, there's no better enabler than what Tom is doing here at Grand Sky in North Dakota. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so before we talk about Grand Sky, let's talk about you personally. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal background?
Sure. My personal background, I started in the engineering consulting business around environmental restoration work. It was my family's company, but I really got involved in military base property development. I decided to start my own business doing that and got some partners together with some capital, and we started going after some projects, and one of them that we won was here in Grand Forks, North Dakota at Grand Forks Air Force Base with the feasibility and a concept around building a vertiport / drone park or UAS business park, whatever word you want to use, a business park around and focused on UAS operations and UAS flight. And we started that in 2011. We signed all our leases in 2007. And 2015, and we've been operational for 7 years now.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun. So, you know, we had a couple of great live streams this week right here from North Dakota. One was from your hangar Monday, right, for the kickoff party for the week. We had 3 startups here yesterday on the full crew. And what we asked everybody was, why North Dakota? So I'm going to ask you, Tom, why North Dakota?
So I will easily say North Dakota selected us as much as we selected North Dakota. The business culture here, the entrepreneurial culture here, the people here just need to get things done. We don't want to theorize. We don't have to strategize. It's, hey, you want to do this? Great. That sounds like a great idea. Let's go do it. We have received uniform support, absolutely unanimous support from the city of Grand Forks County, who is our business partner in this project, the state legislature, the governor's office, right up through the congressional delegation. Absolutely uniform support. And that is a really key thing. I actually live in Texas. I've met my U.S. senators, each of my U.S. senators once in the 20 years I've lived there. And now I just have had breakfast with 2 senators in this last week here in North Dakota. So accessibility of leadership, of political leadership, is really important here in North Dakota. We have that. We have a lot of support, and the city and the community puts their money where their mouth is. So the state of North Dakota has been very generous with grant funds as well.
Well, I'll tell you that's the secret sauce, and it's palpable here. I remember last year I came for the first time, and you could just feel it in the air, the energy, how everybody was moving in the same direction. As you said, Senator Hogan's here, right? He was on the live stream Monday. He was here last year, such a huge supporter. You have all the community leaders, you have academia, you have industry. I mean, I'm talking defense giants, right? Like Northrop Grumman, Kratos is here, General Atomics, the list goes on, and incredible startups and like TruWeather, we're going to be talking about here shortly. But so let's talk about the unique nature of what you've done with Grand Forks Air Force Base. So for those that don't know, is it still a reconnaissance wing, Tom?
It is. It's
okay.
The 319th reconnaissance wing.
Okay, so 319th reconnaissance wing, and you've kind of carved off a chunk of the runway essentially in a very unique enhanced use lease with the United States Air Force. Not a lot of those happening.
Nope.
So tell us how that came about.
So that was my reason for starting up our own business. Was I really understood the enhanced use lease authority. We'd done a few projects like that before, and I understood how it worked, and was able to convince the community and the Air Force that this was a path forward that would be beneficial to the base and beneficial to the community. So the community really wanted to have a way. They were very scared of base closure. They were worried that the final missions would ever leave. And we said, well, let's figure out a way for the community to invest in the base, to make the base just as dependent on the community as the community is on the base. Kind of reverse that paradigm, or at least equalize that paradigm just ever so slightly. And that's what it was. So the Enhanced Use Lease Authority allows us to lease the land on Grand Forks Air Force Base, 217 acres, adjacent to and accessible to the runway. It's a 50-year ground lease. We pay rent to the Air Force every year. They participate on an upside, so the more we develop on site, the more rent we pay to the Air Force. And so for them, it's a great deal. We're utilizing property that they currently can't use. And so we keep developing out there, so that helps them enhance their missions. So it provides a lot of activity for their tower to support and all the different operations. More people need food services from the base. It's just an enhancement to the base. And so it's a great partnership, because they help us technically, help us reduce our operational cost by maintaining the runway and providing tower services and providing emergency response services and things like that. So now we can provide flight operations capabilities to General Atomics and Kratos and Northrop Grumman at a fraction of the cost of any other kind of military range.
Yeah, and so you've got these anchor, right, kind of defense giants right there on Grand Sky. You all just started up this, well, not just, right, but your MNOC, your Mission Operations Center. Did I say that right? Mission Network Operations Center. Tell us about the MNOC and how that came about, what it is, and why it's so important.
Sure. The MNOC, they are a tenant of Grand Sky. They are renting space from us in there. That is a function of the Northern Plains Test Site Authority, one of the 7 UAS test sites from the FAA. And the state of North Dakota has invested over $50 million to date to put in a statewide beyond line of sight network. And that network requires a central hub to manage all of the radars and all of the radios for command and control into one place, and that place is on Grand Sky. We offer security, we offer redundant fiber optic services, we offer redundant power. So it's very logical for them to be out near kind of the primary users, large UAS users, for what will be the large UAS users for that network, and come out to Grand Sky and really be close and participate with that group. So now that network is setting up. The radars are starting to get installed around the state. Grand Sky gets a radar feed from Grand Forks Air Force Base. Someday, ultimately, we hope to feed that into this system, but that's a ways down the road. But, you know, so that was another reason to be out at Grand Sky. So that's really exciting, because other network operations are starting to look at Grand Sky as to be a great home, including the Test Resource Management Center, which is a DoD agency that is going to convert 24 former Global Hawks into Range Hawks and establish a very large operation center to control and support Range Hawk Sky Range operations all over the world from Grand Sky. So more network operating centers are coming to Grand Sky. We hope to be doing some more transportation related networks, support centers, a weather operations center for the entire state of North Dakota to be able to support beyond line of sight operations around the state. We're investing very heavily in that infrastructure.
Yeah, we're going to hit the weather towards the end of our time together, Tom, as we transition to get Don Berchoff on the show. But I want to talk about the Sky Range, because this is really unique. And you talked about this concern, you know, base closure. Well, in that case, right, the Global Hawks, that's what the Global Hawks were getting decommissioned, basically.
Yep.
And I remember when I was here last year, I saw Senator Hoeven speak with George, what's his last name? George Rumford. I was going to say Rumsfeld. George Rumford of TRMC, talking about this program. And I didn't appreciate, you know, how important it was for hypersonic testing, which had previously been relegated to using Navy ships, right, over the open seas. You know, the cost of lining all those up and, you know, being so obvious, right, to our enemies, if you will, when something like that was happening. And being able to do that here using these refurbished, if you will, Global Hawks that are becoming what are they
Range
called?
hawks.
Range hawks. It's like chicken hawks. No, I'm kidding. Range hawks. And they're putting like the sensors on top, right? Above to look up and watch these things fly over them at Mach 5 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do that testing here, I think is phenomenal. We were out on the at Grand Sky Monday night, and all of them were parked on the runway. It was so cool. The cops made me leave. I was trying to take a picture, but really, really exciting what you're doing there. So tell us a little bit about, kind of what else is happening there. Obviously, General Atomics is there, Northrop Grumman. We heard about Sky Range, the Range Hawks, the MNOC with Vantis and the Beyond Visual Line of Sight Network. You guys are setting up for this state, which is incredible. What other kind of like testing or real world operations are flying out of Grand Sky?
Sure, and that's a fabulous question, and we've kind of touched on some of the big items that we're doing there. Sky Range is now probably the biggest program that's going to be going on. The 24 Global Hawks will undergo several tens of millions of dollars of refurbishment to be turned into Range Hawks. They will operate out of Grand Sky and go around and forward deploy out into Guam or Hawaii and places in the Atlantic that they're not allowed to tell me yet. So they'll deploy it, but they'll all be flown from here at Grand Sky with backup command nodes in other places. So that's really exciting. So Sky Range, like you said, is airborne Range Hawks that create an impromptu range for however many hours they need it, and then all just disappear and go home again, rather than the Navy sending 50 to 60 ships out where our adversaries can see all the ships leaving. They know what's going on, so they can watch the test in the same way. So that happening here is fantastic, converting those aircraft so they look up versus down. And more importantly, and in the UAS space, decoupling the payload links from the command and control links. When the Air Force has them, they want it all into one kind of set of links, uplink, downlink, but those have to be separated now. So the sensors might be operated in, say, Hawaii, while the command and control of the aircraft will be operated here.
Oh, wow.
And so that creates a different kind of opportunity. The MNOC, we spoke about that. So now it's a civilian BV loss capability that we're standing up, and the command and control for that network will be here at Grand Sky. General Atomics is providing a tremendous amount of foreign military training on MQ-9, on piloting, on sensor operators, left seat, right seat kind of training, ground control training, ground launch and recovery element, and being able to do it in a whole group of seasons. So not everything is, not every conflict is going to be in the desert. And Grand Sky offers some cold weather test capability. And so we're testing cold weather fuels, we're testing different things like that. But as we kind of go forward with this, all these big, companies that want to do their kind of test work and development work, we are trying to augment then also with small UAS companies. How do we bring commercial technologies to Grand Sky that can augment what those companies are doing? And so, for example, we made the decision last year that if there is a job, a chore, something meaningful that provides value to our tenants that can be done with a drone, we're doing it with a drone. So we are starting a concrete inspection program. So we're going to inspect our ramp. So I need help with companies that have AI capabilities to start determining where cracks are and how to measure that. I'm going to fly small UAS every single day over our concrete ramp and start to really understand and build a library of concrete information. We are building a UTM test capability. We already have a beyond line of sight capability, but in miniature, how can we take small UAS and start flying them around with just pilots at the stick, but then we start introducing flaws in the system? What happens when you have a mechanical breakdown on a landing pad and another aircraft is coming in, but this one can't leave? Now what do we do?
Right.
And so we need to be able to track that. We need to be able to model it. We need to start to build the decision-making process. And then last but not least, we are also building an advanced air mobility flight support capability so that we can be able to demonstrate what vertiport infrastructure is needed, demonstrate how that vertiport infrastructure integrates into a built environment, what kind of infrastructure does it need. I don't think cities in the future are going to allow 9 different advanced air mobility companies to have 9 different types of vertiports. I think those communities are going to want to have a singular type of vertiport available. And to that end, We want to be able to start to make, how is that infrastructure ubiquitous? How do we handle a potential fire on top of a building in a composite vehicle? So with all of that, we are looking for all kinds of data management, AI capabilities on inspections. We're starting with our concrete ramp. It's 17 acres of concrete built in the 50s. It's got flaws. It cracks, it breaks. Snow plows and ice are not kind to concrete. So we really need to manage that. It's an expensive endeavor to keep that up. But we're going to shift to roads, perimeter security, natural resource and wildlife management, and building envelope inspection. So all of those kinds of things will progress over time, and we're excited about all of those kinds of technologies being deployed and built at Grand Sky. So if you have that technology, I got a place you can deploy it.
I know the people with that technology. You and me need to talk after this. Like everything you're saying, I'm cycling through my brain like, I had this company on my show. I had that company on my show. We need to be talking to Tom. So we'll be doing that later. But great transition, I think, with the couple minutes we have left, Tom. You talked about weather being such a challenge here in Grand Forks, North Dakota. You talked about infrastructure. So I think those two things converge with what you're doing now with TruWeather and building out the nation's first statewide weather service. So tell us about kind of that journey, what the challenge is in particular here in North Dakota, and what you're doing to try to solve it.
Sure. So we have, like anywhere else, we have weather cancellations for flight ops. It happens. In North Dakota, we tend to have cancellations more for fog, for precipitation, and icing conditions. And believe it or not, that's not in January and February. It's more December and March that we have those icing conditions. But when we have those kinds of cancellations, that costs our tenants money. It slows down operations. It puts people behind. And so our goal is to increase those operations, increase that operational tempo. And so what we are doing is starting to deploy. We've partnered with TruWeather Solutions to be able to deploy a weather drone, the Meteomatics Meteo drone, which is a weather sensing drone, along with TruWeather and Don Berchoff's software to really produce high quality forecasts, modeling, and to really get comprehensive weather services to our tenants. We're going to start here at Grand Sky, but when we're flying BVLOS, that means we're going out to another area. And as we go out to that area, we need to know what the weather's going to be like. And I'm not talking about 10 miles down the road. What's weather going to be 100, 200 miles down the road? And, how do we know what we're flying into? So that's how we're going to build this statewide network and work through delivering those kinds of services and forecasts so that we can fly when normal weather predictions would say you should cancel. We'll still try to fly, but also when normal weather predictions say, oh yeah, you should cancel. You can fly, but maybe we should cancel. So improving safety and the go/no-go decision on beyond line of sight operations.
It's going to be huge. And we're going to get Don up here in a couple minutes, but you also partnered with Meteomatics. It's a Swiss company. Tell us for a second about what the Meteo drone and why the Meteo drone.
The Meteo drone, so we investigated what would be the best way to, again, when I said we're going to try to do everything that we can that can provide value that can be done with a drone, we're going to do it with a drone. So instead of putting a weather balloon up 2-3 times a day maybe, we said, why don't we work with Meteomatics with the Meteo drone that can go up 18 times a day? Again, like our concrete inspections, let's fly a lot. It's meant to fly, let's fly it. So we did some research. Don introduced me to Meteomatics, and what I was really impressed with was the rigor that they've used to really perfect the aircraft. This thing from a weather situation appears fairly bulletproof to me. I'm anxious to get it out there. Nothing is ever completely bulletproof, but being able to fly with heated rotors, completely heated internal components, with a parachute system as backup for safety purposes, a very simple command and control link, a very simple payload link, a very simple set of sensors on it, elegant design, very reliable, very sturdy, all those kinds of things. We really put them through the paces with respect to, will that work? How will it work in our environment? They've been flying in the Swiss Alps for years. And so if they can fly in the Swiss Alps, we think we can give them a good run here in North Dakota. So
I think you can.
We're gonna do
Actually, the weather's been beautiful this whole week, I have to say. That's been a real blessing. But Tom, our time together is coming to a close before we get Don on the stage here. tell us, you kind of alluded to all the different needs you have, all the different kinds of companies you want to be partnering with. How can people find you? How can they reach you?
So our website, grandskynd.com, is a great way to go. I'm also on LinkedIn, Thomas Swoyer on LinkedIn. You can find me there and reach out. By all means, reach out to Dawn, and Dawn will certainly connect us all. But we really are looking for anybody who's got an innovative idea that wants to prove a technology, we have the operating environment. I have the electricity and the meeting rooms and the power and the BV loss and the ability to plug into different kinds of systems and really demonstrate what your firms can do. And I want to add those kind of value-added technologies to our operation.
And frankly, like we started in the beginning talking about, no better place to do that than here, not only Grand Sky, but in North Dakota in general. I mean, such a great, supportive, holistic environment that has been created in this state. So thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah,
thank you for what you're doing for the industry. I really appreciate
I had fun.
you. So thank you.
Yep. Have a great day.
All right, Tom is out and Don is in. We are getting Don Berchoff up here, the Weather Don, and here he is. So welcome back to the show. By the way, everybody, Don is no stranger to the Dawn of Drones. He's actually been on it twice, like one time last year in the very beginning of our show, and then in April for Thought Leaders Month, where TruWeather sponsored that month as well. So Don, thank you for being back on the show.
Well, I just love talking about weather, Dawn. You know that. So
yeah, yes, he does. They don't call him the Weather Dawn for for no good reason. I don't know if that was like double, triple negative right there. But it's been a great show this week, Don, and we just had a weather panel yesterday here at the UAS Summit Expo with Tom and you and Captain Gage from the Air Base Wing. Great stuff. So let's kind of go back and talk a little bit about the problem that we're trying to solve. I mean, Tom has the practical, right? Like, hey, civilian guy that's not a weather forecaster or weather expert to just say, hey, there's a lot of snow and ice and causes of problems. On a more deeper level, like what is the kind of unique weather challenge here in North Dakota that you're helping him and the Grand Forks Air Force Base and the whole BVLOS community, the Vantis community, solve?
Well, we have always had challenges with weather impacting operational efficiency, mission execution, and even revenue generation in companies that are weather sensitive, but we've learned to just live with it, right? It's kind of built in our mindset that it's the price of doing business. It's operational costs that we just have to suck up. But the answer is, the truth is it's really not that way anymore, because we have all this great science and technology that just hasn't been able to get unleashed yet because of just the way our structure of our weather services has been built, so much surrounded around government. And what we really have to do is unleash that. And if we do that, I mean, just for an example, Dawn, 30% of all manned aviation that flies today that's canceled or delayed due to weather could have flown. It could have flown. The reason it doesn't fly is the uncertainty in what's happening in the atmosphere. We do not have the sensing capabilities below 5,000 feet in the atmosphere to really know what's happening. We use models today to think we know what's happening, but we really find out that icing is a very difficult thing to forecast. And the reason it's hard to forecast is there's no data. So what TruWeather's doing is we looked at the problem here in North Dakota with Tom. Tom is a big believer. We understand the problem with the larger drones, whether it's the Reapers or the Global Hawks or the Predators. We have all that experience in the military that I had that understands the challenges. And now what we're saying, look, they're being grounded 30% of the time due to icing forecasts. That's ridiculous, right? We know that icing is not up there. Right. So what we've done is we've taken this Meteo drone and said, look, we're actually going to fly this thing into any forecast icing conditions, and we're going to see if it's really there. And then we're going to rerun the model, and we're going to take that data to make a better forecast, and then we're going to be able to get them up. And we believe it'll be like 30% increase in flight time.
That's huge. So talk specifically, though, because I don't know that people fully appreciate this. The icing, the precipitation, I think you talked about, was it wind? Wind in particular. These are all things that are not measured unless you're actually flying through it and it's just not happening, right? You did that way back in the day, your 300 plus missions on board, like Air Force aircraft, you know, kind of, you were the human sensor. I think that's
Right.
how you've described it.
Right.
But nobody's really doing that, right, Don? And that's where the gap you're trying to fill.
Right. So when you take the pilot off the aircraft for uncrewed vehicles, you've now taken off your best weather sensor we've ever had. And that pilot had the heuristics and understanding of what the weaknesses were in the weather services system. And they knew where the microclimate problems were, whether it's a loft, whether it's on the ground. And they would automatically factor that into their risk calculation. Now, they're not going to be on the aircraft anymore. We're going to lose all those heuristics. We got to backfill that sensing capability with real data. And we don't have that today. You can't measure winds aloft. We don't have any methods to do that except for 2 balloon launches a day. And when aircraft are coming in and out of airports, 97% of the country doesn't have that.
Wow,
And
that's
then,
kind of significant.
and we're seeing winds sometimes, you know, for drone delivery operations. Let's use that as an example. If you're running a very high volume operation where you're going to fly, I don't know, 60 deliveries an hour out of some location to get to people, and you have a team that's depending on, you know, getting those drones back on a certain time, refilling them again, getting them out to the next place. If you have winds that are 10 knots stronger than estimated, you may not, your whole logistics chain is going to break down. You've got to build your schedule and your logistics around what the weather is going to allow you to do. And that is what we're trying to do at TruWeather. We're trying to integrate that weather piece into a more realistic workflow and logistics supply chain schedule, so that your clients will get their stuff when they are supposed to get it, because the thing will just fall apart. So what we're doing is bringing that precision now that we're doing in the rest of the UAS, everybody, precision, remote ID, precision this, precision that, communications. Weather is the weakest pole in the tent right now in that whole equation. And if we don't get more precision around the weather, you can have all the other precision you want, but it all falls apart when you try to execute.
By the way, everybody, if you missed the exclusive announcement last week, and it was Thursday, I feel like it was a million years ago, honestly. TruWeather did, I worked with Don on an exclusive announcement on weather from the ground up, and you know, a demo of their V360 product, and talked a lot about these things. So check that out on the fullcrew.io, and I think we just dropped that link as well. You can check that out. Don, so it's not just the Meteor drone that you're focused on. I mean, that's an incredible, like, flying weather laboratory, right? Very unique drone, very unique asset that will help you with these measurements that we're talking about. But you're creating like an entire network of all kinds of sensors. So can you talk to us why it's important? There's no one-stop shop, if you will, for weather data, why you need a whole network of sensors?
Right. So first of all, the Meteor drone, and I want to just go back to what you said.
Sure, yeah.
It is a weather lab. The difference is it's not a research lab. So we're the first commercialized weather data collection. So it's actually operationally out there providing real data that's going to solve real problems every day. Now, in terms of the other sensors, what we're trying to do is, look, there was a study done in 2008. It was called From the Ground Up, the National Network of Networks. You can look it up, Fred Carr. If you Google his name, it'll come up. It was a National Academy study. Basically, all we're doing is saying, look, that study said that if you had a nationwide network of low altitude profilers and data collection, that we could get this real data back, we would improve forecasting at the microscale significantly.
Yeah.
We've never been able to get the infrastructure into, you know, the federal government is not going to be able to manage that because the budgets are what they are, and it's very complex.
Well, and the acquisition process in and of itself is a challenge.
All that stuff. And when I was a science technology director, I did try to get that into budgets, into the POM, but the problem is it was just too hard. So I just stopped worrying about trying to do it through the government. And then when I left the government in 2012 and I started my company, I said, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on unlocking the power of science and technology, including these types of sensors. We just got to figure out what the right business model is in order to justify the investment. When I saw the drone and air taxi industry emerging, I said, that's the business case. I said, this is going to be able to fund through amortized fees that are not going to be very expensive to any one operator. I think I figured we can get it down to 15 cents a flight.
Wow.
You'll be able to put out a network of sensors across the country kind of like you're doing with the cell phone towers, right? You don't put them where you don't need them and you're not going to generate the revenue. You put them where the action is.
Right.
And then you start building it out. And then that data, so we're talking about 5 different types of sensors here.
Right.
One's a scanning wind LiDAR that sees dust and dirt up to 6,000 feet and can watch the movement of particles. That's our wind profile.
Okay, I was going to say, why do we care about dust and dirt up in the air? You're saying because that's the wind.
I could see them moving, and through Doppler techniques, we can watch them moving and we can get the wind speeds, right?
Okay.
So that's what we do. Another tool is the Meteor drone. Another tool are ground-based ceiling height indicators. Now, today, the only place you can get those are measurements of ceiling height is at airports. Well, that's not where the drones are flying. So what we're doing is we got some low cost. We have partners. I'm going to call them out here. IntelSense has a very good surface weather observation station that has a ceiling height indicator that we use in Bagram and Kandahar to land airplanes.
Right.
It's good enough for what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, if it's good enough for the military in combat, like where lives are like at risk, then yeah, it's good enough for everybody.
It really is good enough, right? So it's not as expensive. It's like probably 8 times cheaper than an airport observation station. And we're working on getting the standards approved to use that instrumentation using something called data performance standard instead of certifying instruments. And I've been leading that charge on the ASTM F38 with a bunch of really smart people. The FAA has been awesome on this, and we're moving out on that.
Yeah.
So these sensors are going to be valid for use for these types of operations. And then we have the anemometer, which is a sonic anemometer we can put on top of a tower, and we can get the winds aloft that way.
Yeah.
We can also put them on the drones themselves. So we're going to be putting sensors on drones to collect data. And we have all these tools, and we're building the system right now. We have the fusion capability to pull all this data in and then turn that into real intelligence quickly to help, make these critical decisions about supply chain logistics, movements, scheduling, and all the other things that we've been talking about here.
Wow, that's incredible. So Grand Sky, let's talk about this for a second, Don, because you're doing a lot of things in a lot of locations. So let's do a quick kind of around the country, what you're doing where, and then let's kind of end it on Grand Sky and on that high note.
Right. So New York, we support New Air and all the operations in the test range up in New York State.
And they just landed that UTM deal, right? Through
Yes.
the FAA and NASA. Okay.
Right. And they're also working, New Air's working on some other deals right now that are going to be pretty significant for the New York State area. I don't know if you heard, but Micron is putting in $100 billion chip factory up in New York State in central New York. And that announcement
Mike,
is huge.
chips, write that down, my friend.
because New York, the thing about New York is that it was really a hub for technology and radar technology in the 70s. And, they had all that great capability and everybody left. And now they, what they're trying to do is attract back technology, and this is a huge deal for them. So I gave them a call out for that. That was great.
That's
work
huge.
by them.
That is huge.
We're North Carolina. We're working around Winston-Salem, Virginia. We're in Hampton Roads and, doing the urban weather sensing test bed. We're working with the University of Maryland's test range on their Chesapeake Bay project. We've talked to Utah. I briefed the legislature there on weather sensing capabilities. We actually are supporting some aspects of what's happening in Ohio right now. We're talking to Massachusetts about what they're doing up in that area. I'll be up at the AUVSI show up there at the end of the month. Florida, we're working very closely, and one of the things I really have in mind for Florida is this concept of dissipation and development of thunderstorms. This is going to be
oh my gosh, Don, I lived that dream. I lived in Lithia, Florida when I was at CENTCOM, and my boys all play lacrosse, and I can't tell you, running around with metal sticks in your hand, lightning was an issue, and pretty consistently of canceling things. And
that's going to be a big, when you talk about scheduling, we want to get a better predictability, at least out to an hour on where those are going to pop so that we could work with that. And then we have Texas. We're working with the North Texas Council of Governors and Ernest Huffman.
We love them.
And Adrian Doki.
Yeah.
Doko. And then we have California. We just did a study on Los Angeles with Urban Movement Labs. We're in the UK working with Skyports. We're working with One Sky in Australia.
Wow.
And so we are, we built our ecosystem of capabilities. Now we're scaling, and we're trying to help the states now and others with their infrastructure needs with these smart grants coming out. We want to see them put a weather wedge in every one of their infrastructure for AAM, because if you do it right now, it will be budget dust. But if you try to do it later, it's going to be really hard to get it in. And we talked about the ROI. So that's the kind of work we're doing. And here in North Dakota, we'll save the best for last. Is really, they're so innovative and pushing the envelope and encouraging businesses like TruWeather to come here and bring their innovation. The support from Tom has been remarkable. The whole state. I mean, I can go on and on, but let me just say that bringing that weather drone here, that's really the SpaceX for weather right now, because nobody's ever really launched a drone outside of the government purview for weather collection like that. And so we're doing that with Grand Sky. It's a public-private partnership. It's exactly what I like to see us spring out across the country, where the state and local governments, you know, they help juice up a little bit by getting some infrastructure acquired. And then the companies like TruWeather come in and we run the equipment, we sustain it, and then we resell the data and we provide some of that data back to the local governments for them for free to do their thing with their public sector and private, you know, so everybody wins, right? It's kind of like the toll road system. And so here we're testing that. And it's just, you know, this North Dakota rollout of the micro weather services, the 1 kilometer resolution model is going to be so much better than what we're getting out of the National Weather Service, not because they're not trying, but it's just the focus that we have is so sharp that we're able to focus. And really with this drone data, it's going to improve the model. And we're going to demonstrate that this micro weather really is a game changer. It really is the evolution of weather data in generating economic growth in the future. We're at that point now where we really can turn that data into real value and revenue and ROI. And that's what we're really trying to demonstrate here.
Yeah, so I mean, Tom was on just earlier talking about Grand Sky and that public-private partnership they have with Grand Forks Air Force Base. And I think a huge value add is the weather service you're going to be providing that can be fed to the military, right? I know you had some conversations earlier this week about that kind of integration, and I mean, that's significant. So we're talking dual use, right? Military and commercial both. So very big deal.
That's another reason why I was very excited about coming here and working, because you put me in an ecosystem playground like this with military and CBP, Custom Border Protection, Homeland Security, commercial operations. Because I was in the military, I understand all their needs. And now what we have happening here is I had some great meetings yesterday with several of the stakeholders here at Grand Forks that is going to take some of the technology we're building, like the Weather Scout, which we haven't talked about yet, which is a drone that's going to carry special weather instruments on it to fly out and about, not just go straight up like the.
So the Meteor, let's stop before we get to the Weather Scout real quick. Meteor drone can go all the way up to what,
17,900. 16,900.
I'm sorry, 16,900 feet. That's because you mentioned SpaceX, and I was thinking Meteor drone is like, I mean, it's going way the heck up there. So tell us now, pivot to Weather Scout.
And when I say SpaceX, I mean it metaphorically.
Oh, I know,
right?
I know. Yeah.
But basically, that's our anchor. So when we have a profile that goes straight up and down, and we could do it every hour, every 2 hours. That's
18 times a day or something, you said?
We could do up to 18 times a day. That's a reference network. So that data is really good to put into models, because you get a reference network, you get that in the models, now you're improving the forecast. The Weather Scout is really about going out and finding weather problems and challenges that we can't see today, even with ubiquitously. So icing and cloud, turbulence. These are the things that, you know, drones really have to stay away from. So we built a sensor package that we're going to test that it's a radiometer, one of them, that you can go out and see super cool water droplets in clouds from the drone at standoff distance. So you'll be able to see it out ahead. And then we can determine whether that has icing or not based on the temperature. And then, so not all clouds have icing, right? Some can have snow, can have ice crystals, which are fine. Some will have just small, vapor. But when you have the water droplets, that's when it's a problem. And then the turbulence, we have an infrasound device that's only about this big that could go into the nose of the drone, and we could see turbulence at standoff distance far out ahead because of the sound waves coming. It's an infrasound device. So these are two techniques now that when you couple that with a regular sensor package with temperature, moisture, and wind.
Right.
When you collect temperature, moisture, and wind, alone. It doesn't mean you can figure out if there's really icing or not. It's
Okay.
because it's complicated, right? So what we do is we collect the base elements of the data for the model, then we collect the real-time assessment of, is it causing icing? Is
Okay.
it causing turbulence?
Okay.
And you have both of those together. Now all of a sudden we're going to change. We're going to be able to approve our icing forecasts because we're going to have data we never had before.
Yep.
And we're going to be able to approve our turbulence forecasts, which are things that have bothered us since I used to fly.
Yes.
I was an aircrew meteorologist back in the 1980s, and we really haven't measurably improved that. So once we get those out, we can actually start bringing that into the military. And when we talk about moving into a theater like the Westpac, Western Pacific,
Yep.
and we're going to know that we have a peer competitor that is going to be able to take out our communications and satellites, we're going to need to have an intra-theater capability to collect weather data and keep it within the theater and share that between each other as we're moving and doing our military operations. These kind of sensors will give us that kind of data that we can then connect, and we can have battle space awareness, unimaginable weather battle space awareness, and we don't have to worry about going back to our headquarters at Offutt Air Force Base to get data in case those comm lines are out. We can operate for a while with that sensor network.
And the same thing translates obviously to the commercial side.
Exactly.
Using, right, the MNOC here with Vantas
Exactly.
and beyond visual line of sight, because when you think about BV loss, not only do you, of course, with a drone, not have a pilot on board, but now nobody's even looking at this thing as it's flying off, right? So weather is even more critical.
So all those, it's all fungible between, so I always say in the military, it's about bombs on target.
Mhm.
In the commercial sector, it's about revenue. We're taking bombs on target approach, and we're going to generate revenue now instead of bombs on target for the commercial sector.
Yeah, I know, it's good.
It's all the same
Weather
stuff.
bombs. We really don't want weather bombs. That's the point of Don Berchoff, to make sure no one's flying their weather bomb.
Well, you know, there's such thing as bomb cyclones. You know?
Oh, I know. They're awful, right?
Right.
And we've had some recent horrible weather events and across the globe, you know, like with climate change, it's something that's happening even more frequently. So being able to kind of predict, you know, this weather that is happening globally, but also then jump in those windows when, you know, with the right data to say, actually you can fly
Right.
now. It's
That's
not,
right.
you know, there is no uncertainty. Like, you should go now. I think will be really key, especially as we scale up the drone industry.
We want to get you more revenue. We want you to fly. That's our job, is to get you flying safely, though, not with more risk. With less risk,
Yes.
make more money. Less risk, more money.
Less risk, more money. That's the new tagline. TruWeather. Less risk, more money. The weather guy.
That's it.
All right. So we're almost coming to a close here, Don. Anything else that we missed you want to talk about, or how can people find you and reach you?
No, I think, you know, we are at the point now where people are understanding, they're viewing weather in a different way, right? You don't have to live with what you have. It's not even close to what we could do. And now we have the opportunity to unleash this technology because we have a business model that can support it. And so that's what we're going to do. And that's going to make everything better for certainty and scheduling and asset management. So that's where we are. We want to be working with the states. We want to be in their budget wedges. We can do this, not we, TruWeather, but we want to get the actual infrastructure into these budgets so that we can then be in a position where we can tie into the existing networks that are going to be developed on the smart city.
Yes.
And then we don't have to retrofit weather. Weather is always an afterthought. It's always a bolt-on.
Right.
And the problem is it's because people go, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be this bad. Well, yes, it will be this bad.
It's such a safety issue.
It's such a safety issue. So that's what we're going to do. You can reach me, of course, at don.berchoff at trueweathersolutions.com. We're growing our team. I have a great team of people. I want to shout out to all the people at TruWeather. They're working so hard, and they're really executing a mission and a vision that is just going to be transformational. And folks like you and others who are advocates for this and understand the need for it, I really appreciate that. We have great partners, Daniel H. Wagner Associates. We have Metro Weather, Resilient. We can go on Intel Sense. I don't want to forget anybody, but DM AirTech out of the UK. These are all our partners that, basically we're bringing the best of the best, and we're the integrator of the best of the best, and we're making this simple for you, the end user. And that's really all, that's what we're about.
Well, you are. And so again, this is the theme of Industry Enablers Month. And clearly weather and the right weather data is going to enable the industry. So no better company and group to sponsor than Don Berchoff and TruWeather. So thank you so much, Don, for your support. And also Grand Sky, you know, Tom's already departed the area.
Tom's already working on.
He's already working on the next client.
You know, he's brought the Global Hawks here and the Predators. I'm sure he's trying to probably bring in.
You just talked about small drones. So it was really cool. So yeah, good stuff.
That's too small. He wants to get the SpaceX rockets.
Oh, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will someday. But well, that's all she wrote, everybody. Thank you so much. We are out here.
Thank you.